Welcome to OurSport. I'm your host, Larry. John is doing the recording and editing. The biggest story for us in Week 10 is Georgia's victory over Florida. Georgia is almost certainly going to get to the SEC championship game now. I think the ESPN percentage is something like 85. I don't know how it could be that low. Now, the problem for Georgia is, are they going to lose that game to Auburn to knock them out of the playoff? We don't like to talk scenarios around here until later in the year. A lot of times announcers do this. For that first game of the year, with Auburn beating Oregon, they started saying, now what if Auburn does this and Oregon does that? And that's so tiring to do that in the first week of the season. But you get to where we are now, week 10, week 11, you have a lot of data points already, and there's only a few scenarios for each team that you really have to think about. Georgia going to be in the SEC championship game. If they lose to Auburn, they're not making the playoff. If they lose to Auburn and they beat the eventual SEC West champ, that team might not make the playoff. Difficult to project. Let's also talk about this. Now, I don't know if anybody's mentioned this. The huge LSU-Alabama game coming up. Tigers, number one team in the country, on the road at Alabama. Maybe the best thing for one of those teams to do is to lose that game. If you lose that game, let's say you're LSU, you're number one in the country. You lose to Alabama, who's 12-0, finishes the year with that record. You've lost on the road, as long as you were competitive, to the number one team in the country, and then you don't have to play a team like Georgia in the SEC championship game. You're in the playoff. You're in the playoff. The same scenario could be applicable to Alabama. If you lose this game, it might actually be a good thing for you. Also, the other game, the headline game of the night, was SMU going on the road at Memphis. You knew SMU was in trouble if you watched the beginning of game day. When you saw game day and they had never been to Memphis before, and the first 30 seconds of those crowd shots, they were going to be ready for this game. And we almost went to Memphis a few years ago, and I remember when we go to these road games, I like to look at some of the personnel, who's a good player to watch. And they had so many good players that I thought, wait a minute, am I just over-exaggerating how good these players are? Had the Tony Pollards of the world and Darrell Henderson? No, because they're all in the NFL. And when you look at Memphis this year, it's kind of a similar thing. Pop Williams was a good returner for them. He got knocked out for the year. But Kenneth Gainwell, the great freshman running back, also a great receiving weapon, one of the best tight ends in the country with a great name, Joey Magnifico. And DeMonte Coxey at receiver, a big prototype number one guy. They have all these guys they can hurt you with. And who's the one that does the most damage to SMU? Antonio Gibson, with his over 300 combined yards. Just a bunch of weapons at Memphis, very well coached. There's talk that their coach, Mike Norvell, is going to be a head coaching candidate for a bigger job soon. I would pump the brakes on that. There are things going on with that coach that are not being reported and are going to have a hard time being reported that are going to keep him possibly from getting some of these jobs. He was a candidate for some other jobs before, and this has popped up. We're not going to certainly talk about it on this show if other people aren't. Now, SMU, they had their best receiver. Well, I should say their leading receiver, Reggie Roberson, was out in this game. They still had James Prochet, and you have to give them credit. They fought. They really fought. This team has a lot of heart, a lot of character. Prochet out there on an injured leg, getting, I think, 11 or 12 catches. They did not want to lose this game, and they gave it everything they had. It was just a tough environment. Too many injuries, too much opposing talent, and a good opposing coach in Norvell. Also, this was one of the biggest factors that people aren't talking about in this game. Memphis has an elite special teams unit. SMU does not. Memphis has a special teams unit that can compete with anybody in the country. A lot of times they're getting these kickoffs, and they didn't have to go 80 yards for a touchdown. There were several times they got the ball midfield, set up shorter touchdowns, and a game like this, it mattered. It mattered in a game like this against an opponent like SMU. And right now, as it stands, the AAC championship game looks to be Memphis against Cincinnati, who escaped by the skin of their teeth on the road against East Carolina. Well, as we said, we're user-friendly here. If you have a player you want us to talk about or a team, we'll be happy to oblige. One of our commenters, Hot Dog Pup, says, talk about Chase Young on your next podcast, YouTube channel. He has 13 sacks already. He could possibly leave a better legacy than both of the Bosas. He's talking about Chase Young, the defensive end from the Ohio State Buckeyes. The commenters right about this. When you saw Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa, they were very much the same player. Excuse me. And I was talking to a Buckeye friend of mine when Nick Bosa got hurt. Chase Young came in, and he said he's just as good as Nick Bosa. And I said, come on, man. I mean, that doesn't happen. You just roll off guys off the assembly line like this who are just built-in top 10 draft picks. Well, I was wrong, and he was right. Chase Young's an incredible talent. We're going to talk about him a lot when we cover the draft. We're going to get a lot of draft coverage after the season's over. And what I like to do is use comparisons. Who is this player? I could have an easy comparison in college to his NFL projection by saying, who does this person resemble that's in the league right now? It tells you what his career might end up looking like. You look at Devin Singletary, the running back from Florida Atlantic last year. He looked just like LaShawn McCoy, and you could think he could have a similar career, do similar things to that LaShawn McCoy did. So who is Chase Young? Chase Young, to me, if you look at his frame, he has a tall, linear frame. He's kind of built like Chandler Jones from the Cardinals. The difference is that Jones did not run an elite 40 time. He had good change of direction drills and things like this. But when you see him play, Young does have a better burst than Jones. He's got better athleticism even in Chandler Jones, who's a great player but uses a lot of technique. And when you look at just his pure skill set, the speed, the bend around the edge, the ability to curl around the left tackle, they call it bending the arc, and get to the quarterback, his raw strength, to me, he kind of compares to Myles Garrett athletically. So you're talking about someone with a tall, muscular, linear build at defensive end with a explosive Myles Garrett skill set. You're talking about the number one pick in the draft because he has production to go with it. He plays at elite college where he plays great competition. He's not a lower level playing at, say, Furman where he doesn't get tested. And he's producing against everybody he goes against. He's very consistent. If there were not Tua Tagovailoa coming into this draft, Joe Burrow, perhaps Justin Herbert, I would stake good money that Chase Young would be the number one pick in the draft. Not only because of how skilled he is, but because of the value of that position. You're talking about a line of scrimmage position that affects the passing game in the NFL. That's modern NFL football. So that's our thoughts on Chase Young. He's going to make our All-American team. He should be a Heisman finalist. That started to get some buzz when they were destroying Wisconsin, that he should be a Heisman finalist. Well, the Heisman lately always seems to go to a top quarterback, the starting quarterback on a top team, a top 5 team. The mission of the Heisman originally was the award goes to, quote, the most outstanding player in college football. I don't know why they can't be a defensive end. I don't know why it can't be a linebacker like Evan Weaver at Cal. I don't know why it couldn't be a guard. If that's the best player in college football, it's the best player. And to see Chase Young at the Heisman ceremony in New York, well deserved. He should definitely be there. All right, we're going to bring John in for our NFL segment. We're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are on a bye week as of this recording. For this week's episode, they are 1-7. They have not fired their coach. They were thought they're going to fire the coach during the bye week. Doesn't matter. He's gone at the end of the year. It's not college. You don't have to fire him in the middle of the year to get a head start on recruiting. I don't know why there's interim coaches. There's no point to having that to me. But he is gone. They look done completely. Their defense is an absolute disaster. This was Dan Quinn's specialty, was the defense. They went at one point 300 snaps without a sack, 5 games. Almost impossible in modern NFL. And we can point this back, this entire slow, precipitous downfall to one moment, which was what?
28-3.
28-3. Yeah.
Super Bowl game. And it's completely unrecoverable. That game...
Is that a word?
Irrecoverable? Unrecoverable?
Hard to recover from.
Impossible to recover
Impossible
from.
to recover from.
It would have been worse if they... I mean, it would have been better.
Better.
If they lost the game 56-0. Super Bowl blowouts happen. They're, really bad. But, I mean, the Broncos-Seahawks game a few years back.
Correct.
Seahawks blew them out.
Right.
people don't talk about that game as much. 28-3 is going to be talked about 25 years from now.
Right.
It was just a complete collapse offensively and defensively.
Yeah.
The coaching staff takes a huge blame for that, but it's something that sticks with the team forever. That stigma around that game, where they're not going to come back to where they were at that point for years.
Right.
Years.
Right.
They're not going to be able to.
It's like all the old Brown plays. You know, the drive by Elway, the fumble by Ernest Biner. They still talk about those. The butt fumble, Mark Sanchez. And then this kind of permeates your team, especially because it was recently the 28-3 memes dropped immediately, and they're all over the place. I mean, there were so many of them. And it's just as bad. We live in Atlanta. We're not Falcons fans, but we live in Atlanta. Trust me, it's just as bad in Atlanta because the fans are appalled by what happened, and they can't believe. A lot of them were at these Super Bowl parties. It was 21-3, 28-3. At that point, they're going out on the back porch with their friends. They're having some hot dogs. They're drinking. They went out and they ignored the game. It was over. They're celebrating. And then you come back inside, and it's 28-20. What's going on?
Yeah.
Complete shock.
Complete shock.
Yeah.
And it's not just a game. That was a Super Bowl. The whole world was watching.
Right.
That was at the
the
time,
American sporting world.
At the time, it was the most viewed event ever.
In
right?
history?
In
Yeah.
history.
Wow.
Most Super Bowls are as
Oh
soon
my
as they
God.
come on.
Wow.
So literally, you have 100 million people watching you choke. It's not a regular season game. It's not just a playoff game. It is the Super Bowl, and to lose it like that was the worst thing that could have happened to them. You cannot name something worse to their program or their team as a whole.
Yeah, that's true. This is you become known as the worst. This is the worst loss in football history. Certainly in professional. In college, maybe the pick six for Alabama. The kick six, I should say. But yeah, this is. I can't imagine a loss worse than this because, oh my God. Yeah. So Dan Quinn, defensive coach, their defense is terrible. Have not had a sack in like 300 snaps at one point, 5 games. That side of the ball is a disaster. And the owner is very patient. This is a great place to work for if you want a patient owner, if you're a coach. Excuse me. And for some reason, he keeps employing Thomas Dimitroff as a general manager. And Dan Quinn's like, I need a Bobby Wagner for the middle of my defense. I'll get Deion Jones. Deion Jones is pretty good. He's at least a notch below Bobby Wagner because Bobby Wagner's an all-pro. I need a Cam Chancellor for my safety. I'll get Keanu Neal. He's at least 2 notches below Cam Chancellor.
In his prime.
And now he's hurt all the time. And I need any kind of passer. He doesn't have. People are 6 notches below Cliff Averill or Michael Bennett.
Oh yeah, Vic Beasley is just a complete disaster.
Completely, so is small and soft.
I mean, you have to be extremely chippy to play any line of scrimmage position.
Right.
Especially at a small size.
Yeah.
And he's not.
No.
At all.
And you can see
really small.
And you can see when they played Derrick Henry, the Titans running back. Derrick Henry was as big as Vic Beasley.
Bigger.
At
that point in the season, Vic Beasley's what, 240, 235, something like that?
You're playing on a line of scrimmage.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
you can't do that. You could play as like a down outside linebacker, right?
Right.
It was like
a 2-point stance.
2-point stance like that, but he's a straight defensive end.
And they kind of moved him around because he had problems with that. But then when they put him off the ball at linebacker, he wasn't used as a pass rusher. That's in theory his best asset. He did have 1 year when he went to the Super Bowl where everybody seemed to have a career year. Now, what does this team have? This team has Matt Ryan. They have an elite receiver, Julio Jones, who's 30 years old.
Aging.
They have a problem, but he's a superstar. Superstars age well. He's going to be great when he's 36. Look at Larry Fitzgerald.
Maybe.
The great ones age really well. So I could believe it, but he has some injury problems. Mm-hmm. Calvin Ridley, a promising receiver. And really, not more than that. I mean, they spent... This is the biggest problem with the Falcons, bigger than anything else in the coaching, is how they draft. They draft players that are C+, B- players. Jake Matthews, a left tackle. Well, when his contract comes up, because you can't draft, you don't have any other alternative, you have to resign him. And because he's the next person on the market, who's anywhere close to a B-level player, resets the market in terms of contract. So you have a 79, 81 overall player on a 1 to 100 scale. You're paying them 98 money. You're paying them 96 money. So you have slightly above average players. This is on your salary cap. And if you have them, sometimes you're complete busts like Tack McKinley, like Vic Bleasy. These are first round picks who are just complete busts. And then you have to overspend a free agency. The mismanagement starts from the general manager. It starts from Thomas Dimitroff.
Yeah.
And if the Falcons were smart, Arthur Blank, he would go first. He would be the first one to go.
Yeah, but you also have to blame the coaching in some aspects as well.
Well, I'm not giving the coaching a break. Yeah, they're terrible.
They're pretty bad. But the overpaying thing is a huge issue. Matt Ryan, a few years ago, got a $31 million contract.
Reset the market.
He should not be making anywhere near that amount.
Right.
There are some people who call him a top 5 quarterback in the league. I don't think so.
No.
We don't think so. But even if he is the 5th best quarterback in the league, you should not be paying him the number 1 quarterback in the league money.
No, if he's the 5th best, you should.
But he's not.
Because then you're not. And people will say this because he has empty calories. He has 350 yards passing. And they say, well, if you think Matt Ryan's the problem, you don't know what you're watching. No, we do know what we're watching. Because if you look at those times he's getting this yardage, they're down. They're down 21-10. And he makes this cosmetic run where the defense is allowing you to have short underneath passes. And he's padding his stats. And he has good receivers. The offensive line, the one thing it can do, it can pass block pretty well. So he has time. But we've watched him his whole career. I don't know how anybody could say Matt Ryan is a top 5 quarterback or ever been a top 5 quarterback. You could say that, fine. Start listing in order the quarterbacks. You start putting Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees and Tom Brady.
That's 3 right there who are 100% better than him.
Good Ben Roethlisberger. I don't know how you could say he's better than any of them.
Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson this year's playing much better than him.
Right.
Andrew Luck, before he retired, was playing better than him. He had a worse team, so his stats don't reflect it properly.
He had good stats with a bad team.
But if you just watch them play, you can tell which one's a better player. He definitely wasn't the best quarterback in his division.
Never.
Never.
And at one point. Cam Newton won the MVP when he was in his division.
MVP, yeah, and then Drew Brees is there almost the whole time.
He's better than Jameis Winston. Well.
Funny.
Okay. So here's the problem. The Falcons are 1-7 and are not great at drafting. If they keep Dimitroff, this is going to be really bad. You're 1-7. Matt Ryan, he's not young. He's young by quarterback standards. He could have years left, but you're going to have a top 5 draft pick. You're going to have a top 5 draft pick, and this is the year to take the successor to Matt Ryan. Go ahead and take the player. There are great quarterback prospects out there. Because the Dolphins, and it looks like right now, and the Bengals, we're drafting 1-2. They're going to take the quarterbacks for you, at least 2 of them, Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa from Bama. And Chase Young could be sitting there. That'll fix our pass rush. It's so tempting. Don't do it. If you have a franchise quarterback, take the franchise quarterback.
If the scenario you just played out happens, Justin Herbert's sitting in the board. And Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback. And in other drafts, he would go number 1 overall.
Probably.
He's a 6'4" pocket passer who doesn't have an incredible team around him and is kind of, I wouldn't say carrying the Oregon Ducks because he does have some players around him, but he's definitely the best player on his team and is probably not close. So he's a really good prospect, and you take him, and that's your follow-up to Matt Ryan.
Right, and we were talking about if you grade him on a 100 scale as a prospect right now, Chase Young looks like you'd grade him as 100 as a prospect, a 98 prospect. Herbert might be a 94. But what position does he play?
Quarterback.
And your quarterback is 35. Your quarterback is a Pro Bowl
35 years old, not 35 overall.
Right. 35 is an age. Correct. Thank you. So your quarterback, his ceiling is as a Pro Bowl quarterback. That's always been his ceiling. He had one outlier year where Kyle Shanahan had the offense rolling. You can say it's more on Kyle Shanahan. You can say, well, Matt Ryan was the quarterback. Well, look at every other year he didn't have Kyle Shanahan. He's been a Pro Bowl quarterback that cannot hold playoff leads. He's had 4 blown leads in the playoffs of 10 points or more. And you can say all you want about the defense, and this goes back to 28-3. The quarterback is responsible for this as well. You want to know how to keep a 28-3 lead or at least win 28-5? Get first downs. Get first downs. Who gets first downs? It's not the defense.
No. And also, the play calling was atrocious, 28-3. pass attempts when you should not have been passing. Devontae
Running,
Freeman.
snapping the ball with 20 seconds left on the clock. Clock
Devontae
management.
Freeman was going off, right?
Yes.
And they stopped
Yes, he
running the
was.
ball. As the quarterback, you take some responsibility for that because you can change the call at the line. If you look up and see the time and see the situation and think, no, that's dumb to pass the ball here.
Very good point.
You can change it to a run. That's allowed. You can also throw the ball away. They had the situation, they were in field goal range to make it a 2-score lead from 1-score lead or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And he took a sack. It was like an 8-yard sack and knocked him out of field goal range, right? And then they had a holding on like the same play, so it was like 20-yard swing.
Correct.
You can throw the ball away. That's also a thing that you can do as a quarterback. These are things that are very possible for Matt Ryan to do, and if he did those things, simple things, audibles, not taking sacks, getting first downs, they could have won that game easily. It was in their hands.
Yeah. When he lost that Super Bowl, I believe he was in his 8th or 9th year. He had just won MVP of the league. This is not somebody who is new to the bright lights at that point. Somewhat nervous. You are an established veteran who just won MVP. You are supposed to take a leadership position. You're supposed to take ownership of the team, or at least the offense. You could see, if you're watching, it was plainly obvious. Dan Quinn was panicking during that game. Dan Quinn looked like a deer in the headlights. Moment was too big for him. And on the other side, you look at Bill Belichick. Now, it's hard to compare anybody to Bill Belichick, but that was not happening to Belichick. But there's a lot of coaches who would not panic like Quinn did. He could not deal with what was happening. Well, you could see that if you're the quarterback. You're the one who's supposed to settle everybody down. Say, wait a minute, coach is not doing this. Got this right now. The offensive coordinator is calling 7-step drops when we have the lead, we've won the game. Let me just calm everything down. And at the end of the day, if you won the Super Bowl, if you changed his 7-step drop to an inside run to Devontae Freeman, who's averaging 8 yards a carry, whatever, they'll live with you.
Yeah.
Now, Dan Quinn, the coach. Oh my God. He's got a bunch of nicknames in the Atlanta area from the locals. Coach Bro, Coach Bumper Sticker. This is not really popular because of this. He may be a really nice guy, but all these sayings he has, the brotherhood, and fast and physical, and all gas and no brakes, and embrace the suck. Man, this is a college coach.
I'd just like to mention, that wasn't a joke. Embrace the suck. Yeah. That was a catchphrase, the little thing that he had after the 28-3.
Right.
Embrace the suck.
That's right.
Genuinely put on cars and bumper stickers. Let me rephrase. He had to pitch this. There was a meeting of 10 people doing the Atlanta Falcons.
This is
right. Like their image, right? The T-shirts and the hats. There's a team of people.
The theme that they were going to use for that offseason, right?
And he pitched this to them, and they agreed on it.
Yeah. So he just strikes me as a college coach. The whole rah-rah thing. You don't need to do that with professionals.
Yeah, that is a college thing.
It works for Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll's a unique coach. Pete Carroll's a great defensive mind. And he's kind of a unicorn.
Pete Carroll's really unique in a lot of ways. This is a little bit off topic. But he's the only defensive coach to ever have a winning season with a rookie quarterback. This never happens. He's a really defensive coach. And Russell Wilson, as his rookie season,
nice point.
He actually did well. And he's like one of the only times it's ever happened where you have a defensive coach and a rookie quarterback that actually did well together.
Right.
So he is a unicorn in a lot of ways, including that. I just wanted to mention that and bring that up.
And at one point, do we want to talk about maybe the moment's too big for Pete Carroll with that Super Bowl with the Patriots too?
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, let's not get off topic. So Quinn worked under Carroll, and you can see where he got maybe a lot of this philosophy about being energetic and being enthusiastic. And they embraced competition in Seattle. He brought that over there. I guess was a selling point to Arthur Blank. But I don't think this is a professional approach. Pete Carroll, even when Pete Carroll got rid of a lot of the Legion of Boom, they said that had worn out with them. They had heard a lot of the same stories. The veterans had been there too long. I don't think this is a professional approach. Now, you put him at defensive coordinator, University of Florida, where he was. I might work pretty great.
Or just a college head coach in general, at USC.
Right.
I mean, that was...
He might do wonderful. But a professional coach, I think, needs a professional attitude, professional makeup. And the Falcons at 1-7, they might end up with 4 wins. They're almost certainly going to get a top 5 draft pick. I don't see how the defense is going to get better. They don't have that many building blocks. If I were them, I would go to complete rebuild mode. Get that quarterback with a top 5 pick and do this. Sit him a year. Do not play a quarterback when you get it. That's the desire with teams. Like, they say they're not going to play him and they end up playing him. You look at the quarterbacks that did not play their first year. Pretty good list. Tom Brady didn't play his first year. Aaron Rodgers didn't play his first year. Pat Mahomes.
Pretty comprehensive list.
It's pretty good players.
Did Andrew Luck play his?
Andrew Luck played his first year, and Peyton Manning. Yeah, those are exceptions.
Peyton Manning had
but what's the point of playing? They're like, the quarterback doesn't learn when he's on the bench. No, he learns some. He doesn't learn as much. But you'll see what he's not doing. He's not getting beat up. He's not getting shelled behind a bad offensive line for no reason. Rookie quarterbacks do not win Super Bowls. It has never happened. A rookie quarterback has not ever won the Super Bowl. So why would you think your rookie quarterback is? So your goal as an organization, unless you're the Bengals, whose goal is to save money, your goal should be to win a Super Bowl. Cannot happen when you're a franchise quarterback, and a franchise quarterback is an investment. You have to protect. The Colts did not do it. They destroyed Andrew Luck's career because they refused to protect him, or incapable of it. Cam Newton, who may be on the verge of retirement, his injuries are that severe. He's that big, and the league damaged him that much. The point is that you will take damage in this league. You will take injury in this league. The players are too big, too fast. You play 16 full games, not 11 like you do in 12 or you do in college. And the Falcons should take the quarterback and put him on the bench and rest him a year. You have Matt Ryan. He'd be a pretty good bridge quarterback.
Bridge quarterback?
Well, it's a position now in the NFL where you take the Ryan Fitzpatricks of the world and you let him play a year while your quarterback is... Like
Matt Ryan would be a bridge quarterback?
Yeah, like Alex Smith was for Pat Mahomes.
I mean,
he plays for 1 year.
But Matt Ryan is currently their starter. He's their guy. I don't think you call him a bridge quarterback.
He would be
former franchise quarterback.
He'd be an elite level of a bridge quarterback, and then you could get him. You could get a good draft pick for him.
Yeah.
If you're back in his contract, and you wouldn't like to do it, but realistically, I think it'd be a pretty good idea.
Yeah. So a pretty dire situation for the Falcons.
That's right. So here's this week's OurSport Top 10. John was annoyed at me because I dropped Penn State, and it wasn't a question of dropping Penn State. I just raised some of the teams above them. Penn State was off this week, and you had teams that gave us a data point. They gave us information. Utah, Oregon, and Georgia all went on the road, all beat good teams, sometimes convincingly, faced stiff competition, and earned these rankings. You have to reward a team when they get wins like this. Penn State will have the chance. They play Minnesota next week in the noon window. Undefeated Minnesota. That's plenty enough of a challenge. We're going to learn more about both those teams then. We don't do a lot of preview football here, but we do want to talk about Alabama, LSU. Hopefully the playoff committee, when they release their rankings Tuesday night, has them 1 versus 2. Give us the 1 versus 2 matchup. We all want it. And I think the big storylines here is Tua Tagovailoa going to play? Is he healthy? And can he play well? And the most intriguing matchup to me is that loaded LSU secondary with those great corners, Christian Fulton, Derek Stingley, Grant Delpit at safety if he's healthy, against that arsenal of Alabama receivers. All those players, many of them, 2 of them at least right now, Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy, already regarded as top 10 draft picks in a lot of mock drafts. So we may end up being at that game. If we do, we'll record it and have some more features on it in next week's episode. So thank you for joining us this week. If you got a question about your team or about a player or something you'd like to cover, just tell us. Hot Dog Pup got his read. All our social media platforms are in the description below. We're on Facebook, we have email, and of course, we're on YouTube. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys next week.